Hey guys, welcome back to this C++ series. In the last video we saw the Hello World program and we tried to get a rough idea about what each line in that code does. And in this video we'll see what variables and data types are. So to understand variables, let's take an example. When you see this mathematical expression, you can easily figure out what will be the value of x in this case. After you solve this equation, if someone asks you what were the two values that you added, you will be easily able to answer that as 20 and 30. So we can say that somewhere in our brain we store 20 and 30 and then add them up. Similar to this, computers can store data in variables, and to uniquely identify each variable we have to name it. Now there are some rules for how you can name your variables in C++. So the first one is variables can only contain letters, digits and underscores. If you use space or other symbol in variable name, you will get an error. The second rule is variables cannot start with a digit. And variable names starting with underscores are fine but are generally used for compiler specific code. And the third rule is variables must not match with any of the standard C++ keywords. And here is a list of all those keywords. These keywords are reserved for compilers and should never be used as a variable name. Now, C++ is a statically typed language, which means for storing any data in variable, you will first have to let the compiler know what kind of data that variable will hold. And to specify this, we use data types. Data types are classified into two types: fundamental data type and user-defined data type. We'll look at second type of data types later in this series. For now, let's understand fundamental data types, which are also known as native data types. So, in our previous example, 20 and 30 were whole numbers, and to store such numbers in C++, we have integer data types. If you want to store numbers with decimal points, you can use float or double. Doubles generally have better precision than floats. To store values like true and false, we have Boolean data type, and to store characters, you can use character data type. So here is a full list of fundamental data types in C++. I'll put the link to this page in description. As you can see, there are a lot of data types in this table that we haven't covered, but most of them are just different flavors of char, int and double. And we have so many flavors because each data type has a size limit and a range limit. We'll see this in few minutes. I think this is enough theory on this topic. Now let's start writing some code. So I'll quickly open up code blocks. And here I'll create a new project. This will again be a console application and the language will be C++. I'll name this one as variables and data types. Let's click next. I'll leave all this as it is. And now we have our project ready. Now let's write some code to add two numbers. And to add these numbers, we will first have to store them in two variables. So I'll first remove this line and then I'll write int a is equal to 20. Here int is the data type and a is the variable name, and we are assigning it a value of 20. Here equal to sign is known as assignment operator. Now let's create one more variable called b, which will store a value of 30. And to add these two values, we can write a plus b. But this won't show us any output on the console. And to see this output, we'll first have to store it in a third variable called c. So here I'm creating a new variable of type int, and we are assigning a value of a plus b. So keep in mind that when we write a plus b, we are not changing value of a or b. We are simply adding them up and storing the value in C. And to see the output on console, we can write cout c endl. And now if I run this code, you can see that we get the answer as 50. So some important things that you should note here is we are not having a double quote for C like this, because we want to display the actual value of this variable C, not the character C. So that's why we haven't added this double quotes. And also note that int a is equal to 20 is doing two things. It is declaring a variable and it is also initializing it with a value of 20. And if we want, we can split these two operations in two different lines. For that, I'll first remove this equal to 20 and I'll write a equal to 20 on the next line. And this will also produce the same output. Here, first line is just a declaration and second line is doing the actual initialization. Although this is correct, it is always good to initialize your variables as soon as they are created. More on this later. Now this program that we have is good, but right now it can only add 20 and 30. What if we want to add any two numbers given by user of this program? We can easily do that by using cin. Just opposite to cout, cin is used to read data from standard input device. To show an example, I'll first remove all this code from main function. Now let's create two variables called first number and second number. I'll initialize both of them with 0. Now to read input from users, I'll write cin first number. Here this symbol is called insertion operator and it reads the data from standard input device and stores in this variable. Similar to this, to read value of second number, I'll write cin insertion operator second number. Now that we have read both the numbers, let's add them up and store in another variable called sum. For that, I'll write int sum is equal to first number plus second number. Notice that both initialization and declaration is happening on this same line. And now the final step will be to display the value of sum on the screen. For that, I'll write cout sum. And now our program is ready. Now you'll see that all these options have been disabled. This is because one of our previous run is still going on. So I'll open that up and press enter to exit from that program. And now if I build and run this code, you'll see that we get no output. This is because right now the program is on line 10 and it is waiting for us to input first number. So I'll enter 10 here and press enter. Now it is again waiting for the second number. So I'll type in 20 and press enter. And as you can see, it has now printed out the sum of first and second number as 30. Now, although this program is working perfectly fine, it is not very user friendly. For example, if someone runs this program, there is no way for them to know that this program is waiting for two numbers and will print out the sum of those two numbers. So let's make it a little more usable by adding some text. First, I'll add a cout statement before the first cin, which will print enter first number. I'll not write a endl here because I want it to stay on the same line. And similar to this, I'll add one more cout statement before the second cin, which will display enter second number. And finally, before displaying this sum, I'll write the sum of first number and second number is, let me zoom out a little bit so that you can see this whole line. So So this will display the sum of first number and second number is, and then the value of sum. So if we build and run this code, you'll see that it first asks for the first number, so I'll enter 10, and for the second number I'll enter 20, and now it is displaying this string where the value of first and second number is automatically displayed from the values of first and second number variables. Now let's close and run this program one more time, and this time I'll enter a large number with 10 digits, and if I press enter, you'll see that the program does not ask for second number and just prints out a wrong value. Now this is happening because each data type has some limits, and we have provided a number which is much greater than the limit of int. So to check the maximum and minimum number that you can enter for an integer, you can use something known as numeric limits. So for numeric limits, we'll have to include the header called limits. So this file has all the limits for all the data types, and to see the limit of integer, you can write cout numeric limit in angular brackets int, then : min. So this will display the minimum limit of int. I'll also add an endl here, and to see the value of max, you can replace min with max. Now if we run this program right now, all this code will first execute, and then these limits will be printed. So if you want to skip this, just select this, go to edit, and click on comment. This will comment out all this code. So comments are a way to document and explain your logic in code. So for compiler, these comments are of no use and generally get stripped out while compiling. So all this code will not execute when you run the program. So if I run this now, you'll see that we get these two values. One is negative and one is positive. So these are the minimum and maximum values for integer that you can specify. So you don't have to remember those values. You can always use numeric limits to get value of any data type. So for now, I'll again comment this code, and I'll uncomment this code. Now let's build and run this code once again, and this time I'll provide a number with decimal digits. So I'll write 10.6 and hit enter. And as you can see, it again does not ask for second number and just displays a wrong output. Now this is happening because integers cannot store values with decimal point, and for that you will have to use float or double. So I'll replace this int with float and this one also. And since the sum of two floats will also be a float, we'll have to change data type of sum to float. And now if we build and run this code, it should work perfectly fine. So I'll write 10.5 plus 20.6. And as you can see, the output is 31.1, which is correct. And this brings us to the end of this video. I haven't covered char and bool in this video, but there is nothing much to explain for those data types. I'll put a link in the description where you can read all about these data types, so do check that out. The main aim of this video was just to introduce you to the concept of variables and data types, and I think that must be clear by now. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want, and I'll hope to see you in the next one.